All of the podcasts for the next few weeks will deal in some way or another with reports and proposals. These are two pretty big words in the world of business writing. They encompass most of the kinds of writing that people do every day. So we're going to have to look at a lot of different subcategories and kinds and types and classifications of reports and proposals. And I'm going to have you do a bit of this yourself. Specifically, you have a report that's going to be due on April 30th, and this will be found on page 412 of your book. And I'm going to ask that today you write a proposal for that report, and that be your first bulletin board post for this set of podcasts this week. So let's look at a few of the major things that reports and proposals try to accomplish, and then let's look at some specifics. Reports are basically designed to meet three different needs, some of which exist with each other in different kinds of corporate environments. First, reports address the need for information. Sometimes customers, clients, stockholders, employers, supervisors want information about what's happening at a company. A sales report, a quarterly earnings report. Here at Newman University, I get a report every week about fall enrollments and another report every semester about the retention of students from the fall cohort that enrolled. So those are reports whose primary function is just to convey information. Often the person reading the report will want analysis along with the information. These are annual reports that people write, audit reports that accountants do. These are reports that take the information and look at it and draw out what's important and point to the things that need to be looked at more. And very often this leads to the third thing that you find in a report, and that is a recommendatory report, or a report that makes a suggestion. One that takes the information, analyzes it, and then makes some recommendations about what we should do, what the company should do, based on the analysis of the information. So some reports will contain all three of these elements, some only two, and there are some reports where people just want the raw data and they will analyze it and make the recommendations themselves. The first advice I have for you then when you're writing a report is to know what your audience is expecting. Do they want just information? Do they want information plus analysis? Or do they want your recommendations and suggestions? The kind of report that doesn't quite fit into those three categories is the progress report. This is something that is written when you're halfway through a project, almost always written internally to somebody in your company that you work with or that you work for. And the progress report is designed to, oh, look at this, report your progress. I bet you'd already figured that one out. But it's also meant to give people something to hold on to while they're waiting for results. It's used to float trial balloons. And by this I mean in a progress report you can say we're thinking about doing it this way, we're thinking about trying this, and then you can see what the reaction is. And if the reaction is really negative, then you know not to do it. Finally, the progress report lets people know what's coming, minimizes potential problems by making people aware of what the results might be of the final report and the final product that they're getting so that they see it. If somebody sees a problem 2 weeks before they see it officially, they've already prepared themselves for what you're going to tell them. So a lot of times if you're anticipating problems, you will want to release that information gradually through progress reports. A second large category of business writing is the proposal. And proposals deal with all of those kinds of writing in which we are asking for something or recommending something, but mainly we're trying to get somebody to give us something or to let us do something. There are sales proposals that you write to somebody you're trying to sell something to, project proposals that you write to either an internal or an external source when you're trying to start a big project, internal funding proposals, things that you write to your own organization to try to get things funded, external funding or grant proposals that you write to the government or to private industries or private foundations to try to get large chunks of money for your projects, book proposals, something that I have quite a bit of experience with. If you want to publish a book, you have to first write a 3 or 4 page proposal telling the editor or the publisher or the agent what it is that you're going to be doing. So a proposal is something that you write before you do something or write something much bigger to try to secure the permission to do what it is that you want to do, or to secure the venue for doing what it is that you want to do. One particular kind of proposal that I'd like you to practice as part of your bulletin board post for today is the class project proposal. This is the small paper that you write to your professor, your instructor, before you write the big paper. And ideally, the professor should give you some feedback on your proposal that will help you do a better job on the major paper that you're going to write. On April 30th, you have due a research report, and that can be found on page 412. What I would like you to do as your bulletin board post for today is a proposal based on the criteria on page 368 and 369 of your textbook. And that gives you 8 criteria that we're going to look at right now. Notice that I've made the first 3 of these criteria much larger than the rest. That's because the first 3 of the criteria are things that you need to have taken care of before you even start to write a proposal. You need to make sure that your paper is going to meet these 3 criteria. First, you've got to make sure that you identify a problem or an issue that is worth writing about, that is worth the major proposal. You need to make sure that you have, that what you propose is feasible, and you need to make sure that you've considered the audience that you're going to be writing to. Let's look at Professor Flagbag here as he demonstrates with a student what can happen if you don't meet these 3 criteria before you even begin.
Professor Flagbag, could we talk about my proposal for my final research paper?
Certainly, Anthony. I woke up this morning with no other objective in mind, and I am glad that I don't have to go to bed tonight agonizing over what might have been.
Well, it's just that you wrote on my proposal that I needed to go back to the drawing board for a real idea. What did you mean by that?
That you need to go back to the drawing board for a real idea.
But why? You said we should write a paper on how to solve a problem on campus, and I wrote my whole proposal about solving the problem of mean, sarcastic professors.
Indeed you did. And I was flattered to be such a prominent part of your fledgling effort. Let's see, your final solution, if I remember correctly, was to bring in the football team to kick their sorry asses back to 1973.
Hee. Yeah. That'd be cool.
Undoubtedly. I'm sure that these were the best and perhaps the only 2 complete sentences that you have ever written. But let's look at what I asked you to do. You will remember that I asked you to answer several key questions in your proposal.
Yeah, well, I figured that this was just a suggestion. You know, for kids that just didn't have great ideas like mine.
Well, let's call it a recommendation with severe consequences for non-acceptance. The first question you were supposed to answer was, what problem are you trying to solve?
I already told you, sarcastic jerkazoid professors.
Indeed. But you need to say much more than that. How extensive is the problem? Do you have any data that suggests that students learn less from sarcastic professors than from jovial ones? Do you have a working definition of sarcasm that makes a meaningful distinction with, say, gentle irony? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, well, I'm working on that. This is just a proposal, after all.
Okay, well, then, let's look at the second question. Do you have a feasible solution to the problem?
Yeah, 'cause, I know 5 guys on the football team.
If I were the sort of person who wore boots, I would certainly be trembling in them right now. But do you really believe that beating up sarcastic professors is a feasible solution?
Hee. Sure.
Who is going to provide money for bail and fines? Who is going to pay the multi-million-dollar legal judgments that will result from a policy of institutionalized violence? And how is the football team going to compete with all of its players rotting in jail for assault and declared ineligible for intercollegiate competition?
Yeah, well, I will work all of that out in my final draft. Maybe we can find a donor.
Yes, I'm sure that the president would rather beat up professors than finance a new science building. But finally, I asked you to consider your audience. Who are you writing this report to? Who at the university has the power to enact the solution that you propose? The fact of the matter is that your suggestion, for all of its many merits, is patently illegal, and, therefore, extremely unlikely to be considered by anybody with the power to make it happen.
So you are saying that I can't even write a paper about what I want to write about? That's like totally unfair.
This is a relatively free country. You have a right to fail as abjectly as you wish to. What I am saying is that there is no way that you will earn a passing grade with the paper that you are proposing.
Isn't there anything I can do?
Might I suggest, perhaps, a career in the circus?
So, once you're sure that you've identified a problem worth writing about, that you've come up with a solution that is feasible, and that the audience that you're addressing has something like the ability to carry out what you're suggesting, then you move on to the more mechanical parts of the proposal format that your book gives. And these you can do for just about any topic once you've selected a good one. You divide it up into subtopics and say what specific questions you're going to look at. You clarify the methods or the procedure that you're going to use, and we're going to talk about these in the next two podcasts. Are you going to do surveys? Are you going to interview people? Are you going to use library research, primary research, secondary research, etc.? You explain what your qualifications are to carry out this research. You explain the tasks that you're going to do in chronological order. You give your work schedule. And then finally you issue a call to action, which for this kind of assignment usually is an invitation for the professor, that's me, to give feedback on your proposal. That's the format that I want you to follow, and I want you to follow it fairly directly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in your bulletin board post. And this will also get you a head start on writing the report that we do at the end of the week. So that's all I have for you in the podcast today, and I know you all need to get busy.